begins with the President-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu and the Vice President-elect Kashim Shettima urging the Presidential Election Petition Court to dismiss the application by Atiku Abubakar and the People's Democratic Party for a live broadcast of proceedings. They argue that the relief sought by the applicants are not such that the court could grant it. Besides describing the application as frivolous, they say the court is not a soapbox, stadium, or theatre where the public should be entertained. Through their team of lawyers led by Chief Wale Olanipekun, they wondered why a petitioner would file an application to distract the court and waste its precious time. They stated in the counter affidavit that the application relates to policy formulation of the court, which is outside the Presidential Election Petition Court's jurisdiction as constituted. They argue that Atiku and his party failed to draw the court's attention to the fact that practice directions were made by the representative courts for the exercise. More so, they stated that at the very best, this application is academic, very arduous, very unnecessary, very time-wasting, most unusual, and most unexpected, particularly from a set of petitioners who should be praying for the expeditious trial of their petition. Meanwhile, the Presidential Election Petition Court today refused to recognize any representative of the Labour Party except the first petitioner, Peter Obi, who was in court. The court, presided over by Justice Haruna Samani, reached the decision, having been possibly intimated that there was a disagreement between two factions of the party before the court resumed proceedings. When the matter was called, Peter Obi stood up to announce his appearance, followed by Dudu Manuga, the National Women's leader of the party, who sat close to Peter Obi. Meanwhile, before the court could record Manuga on the list, Lamidi Akpakpa quickly stood up to announce his appearance as a representative of the Labour Party. However, Justice Haruna interjected and said, while I read, "It appears there was a little disagreement. We are not recognizing any representative from the party." Earlier on, factions of the Labour Party could be cited at the Presidential Election Petition Court, engaging in a war of words over which faction is the authentic one. The Lamidi Apapa faction of the Labour Party was challenging why members of the party loyal to Julius Abure were in the court. They asserted that the ruling of the High Court of the FCT suspending the Abure-led faction remains. The court rose on the last adjourned date for the continuation of the pre-hearing of Peter Obi's petition. The drama which could have interfered with today's proceedings appears to have been arrested with this intervention. Now, in order for us to actually talk about this scenario, I have right here with me a political analyst as well as a social affairs commentator, also a producer, Cyril Abaku. Cyril, good afternoon and welcome to the World News at 12.
Thank you, Esther. I'm glad to be here.
Now, Cyril, apparently the dread about the fact that the situation within the Labour Party could become worse and affect their case at the Petition Election Tribunal has actually transpired today. There was drama at the courts. The Julius Abure faction were there. The Lamidi Apapa faction too was there. Peter Obi was looking at the clapback between the two factions, deciding and stating who has the right to appear in court. And the judge, seeing this particular incident transpire, had to adjourn the case. Now, we mentioned the other time when we talked about this conversation that if the House is not put together as soon as possible, that it could mutilate the case or the authenticity of their petition at the Election Petition Tribunal. So if something is not done as soon as possible, already we are beginning to see what is transpiring. What does this spell for the Peter Obi and the Labour Party?
No, the honest truth is the fact that Peter Obi's quest to get justice at the tribunal could be dead already in the water.
Really?
Yes, because the way Mr. Akpakpa and his faction are going about the whole thing doesn't make it look like they are giving Peter Obi a chance. Now, the first person that comes to mind is Lamidi and his co-travelers. Are they? Did the Labour Party offend them, or is there grounds against Mr. Peter Obi? Because the reality is that it could just be that they are after who was the party leader that helped Peter Obi to win the elections. But for Mr. Papa, I think his own dream, his own aspiration, his own goals for the Labour Party are very different. One, that the presidential candidate has no stake whatsoever in the process of becoming president of Nigeria. That number two, the Labour Party should withdraw all the petitions written file at tribunals. I find, is that for the party or against the party, or against the individuals who became candidates of the party? So it is very clear now that what this man is looking for is nothing more than to make sure that the Labour Party petition is not comes to nothing, and that his party is, because if this happens, I wonder where does the Labour Party go next? For the first time in our history, as a party, they were able to produce a presidential candidate that enjoyed widespread national support. You know what I mean? And that the party even came as much as third in the presidential election. Where they are today now, I mean, where what Mr. Lamida Papa appears to be doing is clearly to roll back the gains and clearly to make sure that the party doesn't go any further. I find it very troubling and worrisome, because at the time he got to the tribunal, the DG of the campaign, Mr. Aki Oshintoku, was already seated. What I thought could have happened was, Abure was not there. But what I think could have happened was, okay, whether it is Abure or myself, Mr. Aki Oshintoku was the DG of the campaign. So to that extent, he has right to sit and represent the party. But clearly, I think that Mr. Papa has his own definition of the Labour Party and of what they should have done in the election and of how far the candidate could have gone, different and separate from what Mr. Abure and the others are angling for. So one party with this sort of two sharply divided aspirations is not at all good for his own future.
One would say that this unfortunate scenario is quite a very bad one. It was a dramatic scenario today at the court. It means that if Peter Obi had not filed the case himself, because he wrote the petition representing himself, that is his case, the Labour Party did too. So if he had completely relied on the party while he put his case there, this particular scenario that folded up today could have truncated the case.
Or perhaps earlier.
Perhaps
much earlier.
Now, is it very obvious that possibly the ruling All Progressives Congress has a hand in this, or possibly the People's Democratic Party too? You can never tell, even if they also have their own case. Is it possible that they strongly have a hand in what transpired today? Because if this particular political party is saying that their mandate was stolen, and one could see the bickering within them like children who do not have a principle to guide them in the right direction, questions have arisen as to what their capability is to be a party in charge of controlling a complex country like Nigeria.
Oh, no. The bickering isn't the issue. Number one, we've seen both the PDP and APC have had even worse problems in times past. Go back and check from 1999 till like 2011. The PDP had all sorts of, in fact, changing party chairman, changing Senate president. The PDP had it worst. The APC too. If you recall how Adam Oshomole was ousted as party chairman, that brought in a sitting governor against the party's own laws. Okay. Then you also had how Oyegun left office. So they've had, this is not peculiar to the Labour Party, but I've never seen anywhere in Nigeria, let me limit to Nigeria, where a party chairman is insisting that the candidate of his party should not contest the outcome of the election at the tribunal. Is he being paid to do this? We've seen cases also where people who masquerade and front as members of the party are actually moles and agents of other parties. So this is, it's not new. His actions do suggest, so to mean that it could be the hand of Esau and the voice of Jacob. But what happened today at the tribunal? This is like shooting yourself in the foot, because one, you're looking for speedy trial process.
Yes.
You want everything to go smoothly, and then your party is not even able to put up its own case in court. So I think that potentially. This matter looks dead on arrival already.
Wow.
Does he want to go down in history as the man who, truncated his party's chances of, even being heard at the tribunal? That is assuming, without conceding, that they have a case to be heard. So if truly there, why don't you you can settle whatever issues you have with your party within, but not to come to the public and make a show at the tribunal.
At the tribunal.
I think I read a report one time when Mr. Papa was saying that what P2B was asking for was impossible. That the victory of how did he even put it? He said that it was impossible for the tribunal to upturn the election outcome. The P2B, what was asking for was impossible. Even if you believed that your candidate may not have a chance at the tribunal, why should you be the one coming outside to say it? Why should you be the one coming outside to say it? Why don't you keep hope alive? In any case, the case has not even been heard, substantial. As at that time, they were still in pre-trial, pre-hearing sessions. Why should you be the one to come out and say you didn't believe that your party had a chance to do meaningfully well at the tribunal? I mean, it just tells you that this man it looks like he has the nail and the hammer to shut the coffin.
Now, particularly, this particular report says the drama which could have interfered with today's proceedings appeared to have been arrested with the intervention. So, the court intervened, the judge intervened. If she hadn't intervened, if that hadn't been if that particular objection had not been raised, it could have actually neutralized the effect of the petition that was supposed to be heard today. That's the P hearing. Now, let's look at this particular scenario. Let's talk about what what do you call it? The climax of the crisis within Labour Party. It's almost like a script has been drawn. A political strategic script has been drawn to fracture the party and neutralize whatever potential or authenticity that they've already presented at the election petition tribunal. So the way it is that they had first of all started by creating cracks within the party. Then some factions of the party saying that they are not objecting to the inauguration of president-elect, and they're not objecting to the result as announced by INEC on February 25. That's one. It has also transgressed the fact that Julius Abure is no longer recognized. For now, he's suspended, and Lamidi Akpakpa has now insisted that he's going to be the front burner to represent the Labour Party, and that all the cases are the hands of the lawyers who are meant to take over this case should give him an update and report to him on every nitty-gritty of it. You also recall that this same Lamidi Akpakpa asked for a recall of the petition at the election tribunal, and then of course it created an uproar, and he said no, he cannot ask for a recall. If there is evidence, fine. There is no evidence, fine. Would we say that whoever wrote the script is actually progressing well with the action that took place in court?
Well, if a script is, of course, we see that they are making good progress. As like I said, your party, bona fide party members, the campaign director of the P2B presidential campaign was seated already. And when they came, they said those people should stand up for him and the others to sit down.
Remember, this was in court in the presence.
That's what I'm saying.
In the presence of the judges.
Of course, it took the
inside the court.
Of course, they said stand up for us to sit down. So this is, I mean, there's even no respect for the sanctity of the court.
Exactly.
So it just tells you clearly that they have said, come rain, come fall, P2B is not going anywhere. This is what I think is the mindset. I mean, this for me sums up what their mindset is. They're saying P2B, this is the end of the road. You've gone too far to continue. Just step aside and let's take it from there. And what are they taking? What are they even taking up? Take off to see that the party, all the gains that the party has made from when perhaps P2B joined till now. The momentum is cut.
Is exactly. And is it possible that this could lead to no one believing whatever evidence is brought in? And is it possible that there could be a porosity, that is a crack whereby witnesses could be influenced?
Well, I mean already it has taken 2 months for the tribunal to sit after the elections, which I thought was way too long. So people begin to cool off. Already you hear people saying, you know what, I mean, let's just let it be. Yeah, so, but if it takes a whole lot to keep witnesses willing and ready all the time. After 1 year, after 2 years, so, but I mean, 2 months after, if all of those guys are still ready and willing to testify, why not? But I won't be surprised if this thing begins to go out of the ship, because I mean, gradually things begin to wane, and before you know, everything is out. Excuse me, is out. For me, I think this may be far-fetched, but they need to go back as a party and maybe plead, because the tone with which, I mean, the pitch,
what do you think? What do you think Peter Obi should do now? Because this actually could affect the case that they have at the election petition tribunal.
You are saying could affect or
has
already affected?
Well, for it to continue, what is the immediate action that Peter Obi should embark on now? Because it feels that Lamidi Akpakpa, a couple of people will say he's confused. A couple of persons have attributed criminality to him, and so it is obvious. Some persons have said, "Oh, it's obvious he's a stooge in the party for the opposition." The question now is, there is a case at the Election Petition Tribunal. You want to prove authentically that the Labour Party won the February 25 elections. May 29 is a few days away for the inauguration to commence. The House literally seems not to be in order. It's affecting the court cases, it's affecting their appearance in court. There is no unison in the party. So right now, the perception that the people have in terms of possibly wanting to defend and stand by it could falter. What should Peter Obi do as soon as possible?
The first good thing I know that is already on the ground is the fact that people can easily separate Peter Obi from Labour Party.
But Labour, I remember I've asked a question. Labour Party and Peter Obi, are they two separate entities or they're supposed to be one?
No, so do you mean at the court or just as separate entities on their own?
At the courts right now.
So what would happen is he will need to go back and consult with his lawyers and get honest opinion on what he needs to do next, you know. But until that happens, and if it has to be that the party and the candidate have to go together, then I don't know what to say next.
Can Peter Obi excel in this case as an entity, as an individual, without the Labour Party?
It could be very difficult.
So it means that if the House is not put together as soon as possible, they literally may not get any headway in this case.
Well, it appears so.
Wow, Cyril, you're not giving me a good news. You're not giving us the good news.
Well, I would say it's not good news for democracy, but I mean for those who are interested in fighting party battles this way, it may look as if that's what they want. For me, I think that Lamidi's, in my opinion, is anti-party, is anti-democracy, is anti-P2B, it's anti everything that, you know, Nigerians, I mean, to an extent, I mean, those who vote for P2B believed in. You cannot go to court, and what you're asking for is that the petition that could make your candidate become president be truncated. Where is that done anywhere in the world? I haven't seen it before. But Mr. Papa, his utterances and his actions, more even importantly, have proven that he has no other goal, ambition, aspiration other than to say that P2B does not go anywhere. I don't think it is a good thing. I just don't think it's a good thing. The other day, it took the 36 chapters of the Labour Party nationwide to come together to affirm Abure. Okay? So these people should maybe come together and have a sit down with Mr. Papa and say, sir, in our own estimation and view, we do not think that what you are doing at Tribunal is what represents our views. I think that if these people, that is, if some of them have not become, you know, get them together and let them be the ones to come and say, Mr. Chairman, sir, even you, we are not happy with the way you are representing our party. Could you step aside? Perhaps if they did that, then it will work. But other than that, I have to be very honest with you. You don't go to war this way. Where the chairman of your party is directly fighting your petition and even saying it outside that he has no issues with the outcome of the election. Your candidate said he is contesting the process. The party chairman says he is okay with it.
He's okay with it.
I have not seen it happen anywhere before. It's funny. Some of the people that are now escorts that, you know, that are claiming to be escorts in the party, I mean, with that Papa faction and so on. The other day, the spokesman of the party said that one of them had been a spokesman of another party in Ogun State. And now he's in the Labour Party also. So sometimes you get the feeling that, you know, it could be the hand of Esau, the voice of Jacob, all sorts of things. Well, it is politics, okay? But then there is need for P2B to get this matter addressed as soon as possible. You can't have a party chairman who is driving the cart towards Kano and your destination is Enugu State. It's not going to happen. It's not going to work. The other day, another faction of the party broke out and said that they had become, is it the new front or something like that, that they didn't like where the party was going. Clearly, there is an attempt to balkanize the Labour Party. But like we're saying, P2B needs to get, I mean, being the presidential candidate of the party, I think that this is a place where he perhaps needs to demonstrate some degree of leadership. He has to find a way to get the Lamidi Apa issue addressed drastically.
But some critics have said that as a Labour Party presidential candidate, the case can proceed in court even without the Labour Party, especially if he has a very strong standing in the case, has evidence to prove the fact that he was a key member, he's a presidential representative of the Labour Party. It can, the case can proceed in court. But the question we're asking is, the overall outcome is for the supporters of the Labour Party, the Labour Party itself, and the individual that represents the Labour Party. The format was meant to be a collective, it's supposed to be a collective outcome, not just one individual. When Nigerians went to vote, especially for the National Assembly and the states reps, that's House of Representatives, of course, Peter Obi is not the person that occupies all of these particular positions that were contested for. There were other representatives within the Labour Party that were voted in, right? But that means that people voted for Peter Obi and they voted for the Labour Party. So again, even if he can proceed with the case at the Election Petition Tribunal as an entity, as an individual on his own, it obviously, what this actually means is that it may not have a strong move if the party is not coordinated along with him.
So of course, this is, it's what we've been saying. And so he has a responsibility to go back to his house. To go back to put his house in order. Find a way to make sure that he comes to terms with these guys. Otherwise, they will truncate. So if the party had the power,
yes,
if the party had the power to write to the courts, who told you that even that one is done and dusted? It is not. They could approach the court and say, you know what? Because you need money to to run all of these things. If the party says that from their own point of view, that they believe that they don't want to pursue the election issues beyond the election day. That as far as they are concerned, they are okay with swearing in the president-elect. If that's the party's view, it could hurt his chances. Because you need these people as witnesses, as key witnesses in court.
Yes.
You need them there. People voted for the party logo on election day. They didn't see your face to vote for it. It is only yesterday that I think the National Assembly has now passed a motion passed a bill that guarantees for people to run as independent candidates if the president assents to it. So, but up until February 25 until now,
so it's a party logo.
People run as candidates of the party. So, if this has happened and your party people are now, your party chairman is working diametrically opposed to you, this is terrible and quite frankly unthinkable.
One would say that what transpired today at the Petition Election Tribunal was entirely on its own embarrassing. For the faction, the Lamidi Akwakwa faction, actually asking the Abure and those who appeared at the court there to stand up. Peter will be sitting where he's sitting and watching the entire drama unfold. One would say that that's actually very embarrassing. I would have liked to ask you more questions because the APC has actually stood its ground by saying that there should be no live transmission of the case as it is at the Election Petition Tribunal as it goes, as the process continues. They are saying that it is not a theater, it's not a soapbox that requires that kind of media attention. That literally means that the case should be concentrated on, and all the theatrics that transpires should not be put out there. With this particular scenario that occurred, if the transmission was live, it would have been good for everyone to actually see what happened, exactly how it took place and what transpired afterwards. Cyril Abaku, thank you. I really do thank you so much for your contribution right here. I know you're not a lawyer, but you were able to estimately put things in context for us to understand better. All right, so the world news still continues. Hold on, Cyril, because we need to round off before you leave. All right, meanwhile, gunmen have killed over 30 persons in Tankala village, Mango local government area of Plateau State. Now, according to the Plateau State Police Public Relations Officer Alfred Alabo, the incident occurred at about 11 p.m. on Tuesday. In a statement, Alabo said the State Commissioner of Police, Batlomi Onyeka, had directed the immediate deployment of armed personnel to the area. Alabo further quoted the Plateau State Commissioner of Police as calling on residents of the affected area to remain peaceful, stating that security agencies have modalities on ground to arrest criminals. He also called on the residents with useful information to avail it to the security agencies for prompt action. Now, in stories outside the shores of Nigeria, one of the world's biggest car makers has called on the government to renegotiate part of the Brexit deal or risk losing parts of its car industry. Stellantis, which owns Vauxhall, Peugeot, Citroën and Fiat, had committed to making electric cars in the United Kingdom, but says that is under threat. It said it can no longer meet Brexit trade rules on where parts are sourced. The government is determined that the UK will remain competitive in car manufacturing. Of course, it also called on the government to come to an agreement agreement with the EU to keep rules as they are until 2027, and it also wants arrangements for manufacturing parts in Serbia and Morocco to be reviewed. To wrap up the world news at 12, these are the top stories that you heard. Tinubu Shetima opposed live broadcast of election petition proceedings. Labour Party faction representatives clash at election petition tribunal today. Over 30 killed in fresh plateau attack. And Vauxhall maker wants Brexit may force it to close UK factory. That's a wrap on the world news at 12 right here on Voice of the People 90.3 FM. My name is Esther Mwachuku. For the coverage of your events and news mentions and major news bulletins, do send an email to news@voiceofthepeople.ng. Good afternoon. Thank you for listening. Up next is Matters with Ikami Judah.